right? But also if the vocabulary is unfamiliar vocabulary, or if you're asking kids to write an essay to compare and contrast and they don't have strong writing skills, it's not going to be very meaningful or fun for them. So you've seen, or maybe you haven't, or you've heard of the 6+ trait writing. How many have heard of the 6+ trait writing? Some of you have. Okay. Again, it's a strategy. It's an idea that's supposed to strengthen our teaching and learning, and with Common Core, again, it brings together any given subject matter with writing to strengthen our understanding of that content. And so the 6 traits are ideas, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and convention to help evaluate the quality of student writing. If you know what the rubric is ahead of time when you give students a writing assignment, then they can start to think about how can I strengthen my ideas, my organization, my voice, etc. Okay, this is a very detailed, very complicated rubric. I'm not going to diss the rubric at all, but I will say that I tend to agree with Schmoker, right, when it comes to getting to the essentials of our subject matter here, in this case, social studies and history. So he's saying, let's scale back the rubric. Let's do something a little more simple when we're talking about writing in the social studies area. So provide X number of reasons, citations, direct quotes for each major portion of your argument. For each citation, provide clear, readable, logical explanations that link the citation to the question of the learning content. And then provide rebuttals to the major objections to your argument. So for Schmoker, when you're doing writing in the social studies, it's about argument. That's what you're doing. You're arguing with the text, you're arguing with your neighbor, you're arguing with some historical figure. It's an argument. That's the controversy at its core, and the writing is going to be about what that argument is, and the extent to which you can buttress your argument using primary sources, using information, etc. So that would be the rubric he would recommend, perhaps instead of or in addition to the 6-point trait that we talked about. So working backwards from whichever rubric you use, we're going to focus on the ideas corner of the 6-point rubric, because for social studies, that's the heart of it, right? You know, voice, conventions, those are things that the language arts teacher is going to care more about. For social studies, we care about the ideas, right? We care about whether the topic is relevant, the ideas are crystal clear, that you're writing from knowledge or experience, whether it's an insightful topic, etc. So we're going to focus on that part of the 6-point rubric if that's the rubric you're using. If you're using Schmoker, we talked about that already. Good ideas come from good writing prompts, right? Generally speaking. And so on this sheet that I passed out, you'll see some good, I just use middle school because it's still in middle, so high school and elementary school. So there are going to be generally 6 types of writing, right? And I've defined what those are and given some examples of the kinds of writing. So expository, descriptive, narrative, persuasive, literary, or how-to, right? Those are the different ways that you can write anything. And I've offered here some ideas for, or some examples of what that could look like in a social studies context. Okay? This is all just by way of framing where we're going with this writing exercise today. Any questions so far? We're trying to get students to write more. We're just trying to get them to write juicy stuff, right? That's fact-based, that engages in arguments, because that's what brings social studies alive. You all are not language arts teachers, but you're being encouraged strongly to do more language arts work. So how do you do that, right? So these are some tools and resources for that purpose. I'm going to ask you now, individually, to use this writing prompt, using the information that you brought with you from the last session. Consider, agree or disagree, your county, whatever your county is, because you looked at your county last time, right, is not nearly as important to the civil rights movement as the counties surrounding Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, or Washington, D.C. Agree or disagree? Disagree. Well, write about it. You're going to have about 15 minutes to write.
Is this for grade?
It is for grade, yes.
Sure.
How many paragraphs do I have to
What's
read?
that?
How many paragraphs do I
How
have
many paragraphs do you have to write? 30 paragraphs. Write from your anger, write from your heart, write from your, whatever this inspires in you, write from that prompt. Your last session? Is anybody from your county group?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you bring your stuff with you?
Yeah, but they all have it.
They all have it. Well, then get with them.
Yeah, we're not all sitting together.
Well, first write. No, Casey. First write. Just write. Write what you think you know. Write what you think you know.
You mean the county that I work in, or
You have, you have a letter, you've got an FBI file, you've got a photograph, you've got a newspaper article, whatever you brought with you from last time. And for those who weren't here last time, I know some people are being very resourceful and using the internet today to learn more about their own county. And I didn't find out until after I talked to you. So just check yourself. Look at what you wrote. Ask yourself whether you have evidence to support the arguments that you made in the small piece that you wrote just now. Draft of what the final thing will be. And so partly what I was asking you to do is to consider revisions based on the evidence that you have. Looking at the rubric, knowing this is how you're going to be graded, asking yourself, well, did I give enough evidence to support my argument? Is my argument strong enough? Should I go back and add more stuff or revise or whatever? So just quickly, what were your responses to the prompt? Is your county not nearly as important to the civil rights movement as Atlanta, Birmingham, Washington, D.C.? What were some of the responses?
They were all important.
Okay.
At some point in time, like I was telling you, everybody has their own little story and they add up. Right.
Okay.
From our lecture, it's the grassroots movements, without the support of the individual people behind the organizations and DNAs, nothing would have happened. It's the ordinary people, like high school students, and community groups, so all counties play their part.
So did any of you use Jim's lecture as part of your evidence? Okay. Very clever. Okay. So I said, when I set it up, I said the evidence you brought with you, but that doesn't keep you from shutting off your ears or your eyes, right? You heard Jim's lecture, that's evidence. Some people have their own personal experience. You lived through something, that counts. You heard oral histories, those count, right? So all the pieces of evidence count. Some may weigh more heavily than others. There may be somebody who's giving an oral history who you've heard on the grapevine might be suffering from some dementia. So then it's kind of like, well, I wonder if that person is really telling the story in the way that it really happened. But that's not to discount that person's story. It just means that you have to get some more evidence to make sure that that date that that person said was correct, or that place or the sequencing was correct, right? So you don't take any evidence in and of itself, by itself, right? You always have to have an accumulation of evidence to build your case. But all evidence counts, right? So to round off this part, because we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and do a photo exercise. To round off this part, look at this, the writing prompts that I offered on this sheet. It's good. What I tried to do is adapt from this website. This is a pretty good website, actually. There's several that offer some good writing prompts. Trying to adapt the different types of prompts to some examples that you can use in a social studies context. So the ones that I think we talked about a lot today were the narratives, when Jim was talking about storytelling being at the heart of history. And I think in terms of Schmoker's piece, a persuasive essay is going to be the thing that engages arguments. So those would be the two types of prompts that you might want to try to do a lot more of as you're considering how to get students to do more writing in the social studies context. But there's no reason why you can't do the descriptive piece. Imagine you're a freedom rider as the freedom rider enters the state of Virginia. Describe what you hear, see, and smell. That can be really compelling because it shows you that the kid has really paid attention to the film that you showed, or the oral history interview with a freedom rider, or whatever. Describe a historic site in your own community. Start with what you see when you walk in, and on the immediate left, and you pan this way. So you're getting some real detail about a field trip that you might be fortunate enough to take with your kids. Or if you step outside the school and there's a historic site right there that you tend to overlook because you just pass it every single day. Let's focus on it. Let's pay really detailed attention to what we see. Describe it, and then we'll try to figure out what the meaning of that thing is, right? And so there are a lot of different ways to play with writing in the context of social studies that might not only help us move closer to Common Core standards, but bring history alive for kids in our classrooms. And it can be really short writing assignments. One of the other things that's really powerful is to do a lot of writing, a lot of short writing of different lengths. So short writings like we did today, it can be a longer piece like a research paper, stuff in between. It's the practice that builds the writing skill. Sir?
I do a whole lot of writing in my class, but the problem I make a lot of reflection as well, and the kids like to, and they don't mind it. But I have a problem just finding time to really sit down and grade everything. And I want to know if you've had any suggestions, aside from maybe peer editing is about the best, or self-evaluation. Yep. But that's what I struggle with, because if they see that it's for nothing, it's almost defeats the purpose.
So it's not for nothing if they're building skills and fundamentally the big paper that they do for you is well written, right? But the peer editing and the self-editing, I don't know how you can reward that so that they can feel like it's worth doing and that it matters, but that's how you save yourself time, is to say you have to be responsible for what you write, and you have to meet these standards, and so you have to practice this. And then peers can be, as you know, really brutal with one another. So they're probably harder on each other than you would be on them. And so that also helps to keep the practice going and to keep people kind of in check and disciplined about it. So, you're going to say something?
I do little mind things. Keep me looking at the writing, because if on Friday afternoon I pick up this huge stack and I take it home and I look at it, I go, I don't want to do that. But if I give them note cards and tell them they have to fill up the note cards, I will look at the note cards because it's not as much. And it's a kind of short, quick thing. So I can look at those and give feedback on that faster. For example, the assignment that we gave today, if you only had 15 minutes and you wanted them to respond to that, another thing you could do is say, I want you to think about do an outline. How do you think you would answer this question? So you get your outline down there. And as you were doing, several of you were pulling out your computer, or you were going back to your notes, or you were asking somebody, they said something about C.C. Bryant or whatever. Who was that? I think I'm going to put those people there. So if you really look at the outline and see if they're on the right track, then it means that the next time that you look at it, you're not having to look at it the same type of thing. But mind trick, little thing. Yeah.
That's perfect, because, well, shoot, I didn't even want to do this assignment. They sure don't like it when I say people write a paragraph, they'll do it.
Right.
But the idea of filling out a note card, which is essentially just a paragraph, seems psychologically manageable. Like, you've given me a note card, I probably would have done a better job on this.
That's a good idea.
And the other thing is, I have note cards, take a piece of paper, tear it in half. I don't want any more than a half. Okay. And for those little girls that say, can I write on the back? Okay. But, one of the things you're really trying to do is to get them to summarize what was the most important thing. Because if this place is not the place that you want to add all the detail, then go back and look at those with the detail. The other thing that I find that makes it easier for me to score these is when I have a detailed rubric. So I know what I'm supposed to be looking for. I need to see if they've got so many sources. I need to see if they back that up, if they back up their idea with some facts. And so I can pay attention to the rubric. It means I'm not trying to kind of categorize good, bad, that type of thing. And that is a double-edged sword because that rubric is so hard to get right, but it does help a lot. If I have the rubric, I can go a lot faster when I have those. Any other questions about writing prompts before we get into this next quick activity? I think we'll do this in the morning. I don't know how many of you schools talk about what the Common Core test may be, but one of the discussions about the Common Core test, or the discussion that Mississippi made, the way their test may look like is, the students would come in and one day they're going to do, first they're going to do research. So they're going to look up things and they'll have to write things down about their research. The next day they'll come in and they'll be given a broaden that topic or another part of that, and they would have to write on it. And actually it ended up being about a 3-day process where they're using research from different places. One of them would be the internet, one of them would be some writing, some things that they've read, and then they're going to come back and write their paper.